Good morning, everyone. I think we finally got this working, and I apologize. We are late, but we had a technical challenge this morning. We do this using Restream, and for the first time, the service went down. We are doing this over the internet, and the internet is not always wholly reliable, so we apologize. We're getting a little bit of a late start here, but welcome to Morning Market Movers, where we do live analysis for day trading and take a look at hotspots in the market for today, Tuesday, April 5th. My name is Todd Rich. I'm with Nadex. With me, Brian Caprice from Keep Trading Simple. I apologize for that hiccup today. Again, we're doing this over the internet, and the internet was glitchy this morning, but here we are. Just a little bit late. Hopefully everyone will catch the recording of this for those who tried to join earlier and were unable to. What are we looking at today? And you know what? I'm going to say, one, we are going to talk about a few things. There is some new developments going on with sanctions against Russia. We are seeing that impact the price of oil. We're also seeing equities looking a little bit weak. Yeah, we have to. I know who we have to blame. You're never here in the morning, and you came today, and of course, this is the first time in over a year we've ever had a glitch like that. You knew it was going to happen. What are you going to do? I mean, there's just nothing we could do about it. So we are seeing oil trying to. It definitely has popped higher, and we're going to see what the price of oil does. We've also got equities looking a little bit weak. Excuse me. On top of that, we are going to talk a little bit about what happened in Australia last night, because the Australian dollar is seeing some strength. It's the one place in the FX markets where we saw some significant movement. What I am going to say also is that Brian is going to be doing a full rundown today. And so I am actually going to drop into the chat right now a link. Come back in 3 hours, and there's going to be a full-blown session, but we still are going to do our pre-market discussion now, and then a full-blown session in a few hours. I did drop that link in. If you're not registered, hopefully we won't have any internet troubles then. Before we get into some of these charts and take a look at what's going on, I do need to share that trading involves risk and may not be appropriate for everyone, that any trading decisions you make are solely your responsibility and at your own risk. And this is an educational session. Please do not construe anything Brian or I say as a buy or sell recommendation. We are doing this for your education purposes. Oh, and the one other thing I also wanted to mention is we do have an economic number coming up this morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. And that could be the ISM, the International Supply Management, the Institute of Supply Management. I'm sorry, the Institute of Supply Management. They're coming out with their PMI number, so we will have that as well. In fact, let me drop that in there, and we can take a peek at that, because that could potentially move things later this morning in the equities. So, Brian, let me just go ahead and flip it over to you, and let's kind of run through a little bit of that, because there is some changes
Sure.
going on in Ukraine and Europe.
Yeah, I mean, the biggest move obviously is the Aussie, as you mentioned before. As of last night, we saw that there was a monetary policy statement. There was no raise, but it was just the language that they use, that they're getting much closer to it. That it's that the overall Aussie dollar, it's at its best level since the mid of last year. But again, so much of it is not about the actual rate hike. It's about the language about when you're going to raise, because then the market adjusts, and that's really all that it is. And that's why we're seeing the Aussie dollar much higher, and it's significantly higher. I mean, it's the next closest thing is the dollar CAD, and again, that's because of oil continuing to rise, getting that coupling back. But Europe, obviously weaker. Again, anything bad Ukraine, it tends to be weak over here. Pound's up a little bit versus the dollar. The dollar, I would say, is more or less flat, but the euro pound down 46 is also pretty big drop. And again, European weakness, a little bit of pound strength cranking in there. As far as major headlines, again, the biggest one is obviously RBA low speaking. Yes, late last night, 12:30. The rest of it is a lot smaller. Again, the Ukraine situation is continuing to unfold the way that it does. the EU is proposing to ban Russian coal imports. It's only not coal they use, and they were already canceling all the coal burning power plants. So it's kind of one of those ones. It's like, yeah, stick it to them, but it's not really that much. They had already
It's a
planned to do it
headline.
even before. Yeah, even before the Ukraine scenario happened, they were already planning to do that. So it's one of those ones. It's like, yeah, we were tough, but it was planned like a while ago. So um, there is a couple different things concerning the markets, and again, obviously the VIX is up today. Again, as more unfolds, the news is going to continue. I mean, the news is, it has that train wreck mentality. It will continue to show as bad a stuff as they possibly can to get more eyes on listening, watching, streaming. But there are some things that are definitely controlling the markets. One of them is Treasury yields remain high. As they remain inverted, Todd mentions that a lot, that we are back in the inverted range. Recession. We
Recession.
mentioned that they haven't said, we're going to a recession, but they haven't said we're not either. And the fact that they're staying on the fence like that is a big deal. Here's a nice article that came out today as well. Basically, what consumers are planning to cut back on if prices continue to surge. Remember, Yellen has said it's going to remain hot for a year. They talk about it in here. Some of the big things they're talking about is it's unfortunate because I know a lot of people in the industry, but if prices continue to go high or stay high, 52% of people said they're cutting back on dining out. That industry is already smashed around pretty hard with people coming back slow and COVID restrictions and everything else. Cutting back driving, canceling vacations, canceling monthly subscriptions. When you think about all these things, you're like, wow, this means that these are. If you said we're in a recession right now, what can you do to survive the recession? These are all the things, and we're not even officially in a recession. This is what people are talking about. So we're not even in the recession yet, but we're there.
I'm already doing
right
some
there.
of this stuff in anticipation of it, so I could, so I could weather the storm a little bit better. So.
Yeah, and what have you done the last 6 months? Same thing. 53 cut back on this, cut back on driving, cancel my subscription. So it's already in there. Switch to a generic product brand. Delayed buying a home, did not pay my bills, 13%. So I mean, there's things in here that are like, oh, that's not good. And you talk about how 75% of people are worried that the higher prices will force them to rethink their financial choices. So kind of a big deal. And that's on top of something like this. We just saw that the Italian sector growth slows. Services like restaurants, things like that. So we're seeing it. It's not just here; it's around the entire world. So, there's been some manufacturing growth that has been great, but services seem like they're continuing to get hit. So, and then again, we talked about this yesterday that as Russia is officially in a recession now. That again, there's a spillover effect from this. So, not necessarily the best. Again, we do have our ISM services today. It's expected to be a little bit higher than what it was. And again, we already know that people are cutting back. The question is, how much are they actually cutting back so far? And again, the reason why this is important is because tomorrow we have that FOMC meeting notes talking about, is it going to be 0.25? It's going to be 0.5. Put it this way: if it's a 0.25, it's guaranteed that there's going to be a shift in all the political parties will be shifted come October, because people will be so angry. If 75% of people are worried about it now, and again, it's known that they vote with their checkbooks or their wallets, there's going to be a major shift. It's going to be huge. Yeah. The policies, talk about gridlock and policy changes and people not getting in. You reap what you sow, and that's what we're dealing with right now. So
I like gridlocking government. It's the best thing that they can do. That means they can't jack something.
You like when senators decide to sit down in the middle of the chamber, because that's what's I think we're back in the UK.
I don't want them to do nothing. The less they do, the better off we seem.
Yeah, it's like the UK, right? The UK. I think it's the UK and the Japanese part of it. But like, fights are not uncommon. We just have people that sit on the floor and be like, we're just going to protest, whatever. It is what it is. So, but again, not necessarily the best of signs. I have zero. But FOMC is going to be obviously a very, very big headline for tomorrow. We'll mention it and talk about it later. But the services will give us kind of I would say, kind of a foreshadow of what recession looks like here. Do I think we're going to go into one? Yes. Do I think we have major problems coming down the road? Yes. I think there's a lot of big things, and I'll talk about them when we have more time at the 12 o'clock presentation today. Right. But anyway,
let's take a look at. Let's look at. Because I know that oil's moving. I know the equities are looking weak. So let's do a couple of charts before we.
Oil's not a big one
this morning.
Yeah, I mean, oil's pulling back to that 104 region. We talked about this yesterday being, listen, once we clear this 104 region, there's nothing stopping this going all the way up to 107.
Yep.
We came up and we hit it, we bounced, we had a nice little short trade yesterday, and then it started basing, and then it started to punch through, and now it's having all the problems here. It's eating the buyers up. Once those are gone, and again, it's made a few different stabs forward. Once it gets enough of a boost, again, like I said, we're going to 10, it's a blink. It's literally a very, very small fraction percentage on this chart for us to jump right back up to 107. And all we're hearing about now is, okay, so they're restarting the Keystone Pipeline. Everyone's like, well, that's not going to help right away. It wouldn't. It's not going to lower it right. No, but if we would have had that supply running the full time, it potentially could have. Um,
Yep.
and again, they talked about this morning on CNBC that we're scrambling to use this. And again, the one thing that people are misconstruing here is we're not looking to replace or stop using fossil fuels. We're looking to use different ones. It was a very interesting assessment that, basically shifting from one of these fuels to another fuel to another fuel. The only fuel we've ever stopped using is whale oil. Everything else is technically a fossil fuel. So they haven't fully, they're like, we're not looking to replace it. We're looking to use different kinds to fund our energy growth. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that. So interesting article. Speaking of that, again, natural gas is exploding through that level at 584. It hit it yesterday right at that 10 o'clock time frame, pulled back, nice little short trade. But I mentioned this is an extremely risky geopolitical based trade right now.
Yep.
Russia at any moment could turn things off. And again, I think it's just a matter of time, and there's actually no sellers until we get to $6.08. So it's kind of like, yeah, fill up your gas. Everyone's like, oh, wait till summer, it'll be cheaper, but it is not getting cheaper. And some of the things we've heard with bond payments and blocking Russia from actually making bond payments and things like that. It's going to get crazy. And again, remember, they have a big handle on natural gas. It's them versus the United States, and they're gonna ratchet it up. It's
Yeah.
kind of like it's a tit for tat scenario. So unfortunately, I feel like natural gas has a lot more to go, particularly with the way that the dollar is being used right now. I think it's going to get dangerous. I think this has the ability to run. Gold and silver both up just a little bit today, but kind of stabilizing themselves. Overall, I think the other story of the morning is going to be the VIX. Obviously, in the overnight, it went over. Again, you see more headlines. Oh my God, it was this was bad. Anytime they say that, the VIX tends to get a little bit higher. But today, unlike yesterday, yesterday we saw that the VIX was up. It had gapped, but then as soon as it opened, it dropped back down again. There was no news to really fund that kind of overnight gap. Again, they went up in the overnight here as we got the European session. But right now, everything is in the red, and I think right now it goes more back to inflation fears. The talk of the R word, the recession fears. So everything's kind of, I would say, it's more stable in the red territory than it was in the green area yesterday. Does that mean we're going to be negative? I mean, we do have some levels. It did come up and bounce, and you can see yesterday we talked about some of these levels. We had those quick pullbacks, and again, things coming back in the 23 range. I'd say right now, again, we have lower highs, we have lower lows. We're coming through an area. I would say watch out. There is an area sitting right here that we're kind of bouncing off of, and again, we have to drop to the 15-minute to be able to trade these. Yeah, it's a decent level. It's been tested once, but if it drops, we have an old level here, and then we could continue to fall. So it's really going to depend on kind of the conversation we see at the open. But it is an area where there's
Yep.
buyers. NQ, I think, is a very, very interesting story right now. I don't know if you guys saw it. I had it over here. Basically saying that the Twitter story may not be over. It was up here. I don't know if you saw it up top.
With
They removed it. Yeah, Elon Musk is now being, even with his 9%, he's being put on the board.
Yep.
And the news comment today was that he may not stop at the 9%. It doesn't exclude the idea of a full buyout. That a full buyout still may be on the table. That he wants to get access to Twitter. So again, what does that do for NQ? Obviously, it helps it a little bit. I mean, again, where we are with this big kind of parabolic move yesterday, you can look, if we run it all the way up again, the 23.6 is sitting right around there where there is an area of buyers. Is it the cleanest area? Not so much, but like the ES, it is an area where buyers have been in the past. But the one thing that I'm looking on is this big area right here. If we're able to break through really this level of stabilization here, I'll turn this orange so it's a different color. If we're able to break through, what is this? Basically 15,000. There's quite a drop all the way down to that 14,900. So it could be a very fast ascent if we go down there. But right now, I have to say, looking at this, I mean, yes, the Europeans have shot it straight down, but with really lack of any news, we are at an area buyers. If not, there's another area right behind it. There could be an opportunity to go long in NQ. And again, Twitter's not a huge piece of it, But again, it is a big name that a lot of people know. They talk about acquisitions that could be a big part of it.
And Amazon's in the news too. I
Yeah.
mean, there's a lot of news going on. They're launching. They just signed a massive rocket deal to try to put a bunch of satellites into low orbit to offer internet satellite globally.
Yeah. You remember the Star Wars program from the 80s, Todd? That's actually yeah.
Wait, do you mean the movie or
No, I mean the actual yeah.
I
Yeah, so yeah, and this has come up recently as well, and it's one of the things that Tesla and again, not Tesla, but SpaceX or whatever, it's been in news recently. And again, China is very big on it. It's been the weaponizing of space. There was the agreement originally that was like, we're going to have Star Lab and then we're going to start weaponizing. And there was an agreement not to weaponize space. China has started to weaponize space already. And again, the more satellites we throw up, I don't believe they're all communication satellites. It's actually been documented that they are starting to weaponize space. It's not really the best thing.
no. There's
Yeah.
enough junk up there as it is.
Yeah, there's too much junk up there, but
you won't be able to launch anything out of the Earth's atmosphere without hitting something.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it's at. But anyway, again, area of buyers are sitting right here, and it just happens to also be on a 50%. So the YM is actually setting up too for where you say, hey, listen, this is pulling back to an area. It is a 50% retracement. Could this be a long at the open? I mean, it's negative. Everybody looks at this and says, oh my God, the VIX is huge. Everything's down. Sell. This could be a nice little trap in the overnight. There's a bear trap sitting here with the Globex low coming at 6 o'clock this morning. So again, it's kind of a Globex trap with a 50% retracement and an area of buyers on top of each other. Could be a decent trade to go long at the open. And then Russell again pushed this a little bit higher, but you can see kind of sliced through that 23.6, and you can say, is Russell a buy? And I think Russell is the one that stands the kind of as the hardest route right now. Again, that ISM services. I would say services is more in the Russell's realm. It's the smaller company. So just something to watch out for. Of all of them, it's kind of like this is the strongest right now. That's why I'm saying if everything else is turning, finding areas of buyers, the Russell will only be down a little bit. It does have a 23.6, a continuation higher. Can we get up to 2100? I'd say it's on the table, But I think a lot of today is going to be like, all right, what the heck is FOMC going to do tomorrow? How do we pre-position the market for FOMC? And in reality, today would be a great day for all the markets to go straight up in the air because FOMC tomorrow, I'm pretty sure that they have to, do the 0.5. They have to mention it. Jamie Dimon actually says, it was interesting. Jamie Dimon made comments yesterday. I saw the article and I meant to copy and I didn't, saying that the Fed is going to raise interest rates more than what the public thinks it's going to. So it was interesting that he's always been the one saying this. That, I mean, he's been very, very right with everything that he says. Love him or hate him, the guy knows what he's talking about. Saying that the Fed is going to raise more than what the public thinks they're going to is a very interesting statement coming out of a guy like that.
Well, maybe that's what they need to do to shock the system is they can't broadcast everything and give us that soft landing. They're going to have to do something to shock the system.
Yeah. So again, Apple, Tesla also I think are important a message today. Again, Apple up, big gap yesterday, but it's maintaining and holding even the overnight. It hasn't pulled back at all. And then again, Tesla kind of the same thing. Pulled back a little bit, but it's also pulling back, getting some profit taking into an area where there's buyers. So those could be two big perks for NQ rolling around. And NQ is technically the weakest right now. NQ starts to catapult. It should drag everything else up. So kind of a lot of interesting pieces out there. So
there is a lot going on.
There's nothing mainstream, out there. And again, bonds are also way lower. So again,
but we still have that slightly inverted. They went yields go up, but they're staying in lockstep.
It's the hokey pokey song. It's all it is. It's the hokey pokey song. Put your right foot in, put your left foot out. Yeah. What it is.
All right. I with that, I want to apologize to everyone again. I know today it was just a little bit of a fiasco, but it was the internet. We're delivering this over the internet. It's not always perfect and reliable, but we seem to get through it. But again, I want to apologize for that. Any questions for Nadex, please email us, customerservice@nadex.com. Brian and I are also very much accessible. Our emails are up there. I love getting emails from you. Brian and I both answer them. We answer our own emails. And I dropped the link in. Come back in 2 hours and 45 minutes. Get the full-blown session. We'll get a glimpse of what's going on after the open. And again, today we got that ISM number coming out at 10 a.m. Eastern. So that'll be before the afternoons, the midday session, and then again we got the Fed tomorrow. We get those minutes. That could be interesting. Maybe we'll see some setups from today going into the release of those minutes. So hopefully we'll catch you again in a few hours. Otherwise, Brian and I, Brian will be back tomorrow morning. I won't be here. My colleague Dan Cook will be covering for me. But we will catch you then. Hopefully there are no challenging internet issues tomorrow morning or this afternoon for that matter. Thank you so much for joining us. Good luck in the markets, everyone.